They're sleeping in the woods. I think there's some makeshift loos. The NGOs have got a warehouse there for clothing, and there's a food kitchen. But with the winter coming, the situation could become even more desperate. And it's shocking to think that it's got worse than it was in the days of the jungle. So the question is, we've all got to get together, and how best can we be most effective in pushing the government? Now, there are, at the moment in Calais, well, let's take the good news first. As a result of pressure on the government, as a result of the legislation, we've got about 550 children over from Calais for family reunion purposes, and 200 under the amendment that I moved and that got passed. So we've got about 750 altogether. That is successful. But we reckon at the moment in Calais, there are probably another 200. About a third of those should be entitled to come quickly as part of family reunion. And some of the others, we don't know how many, would be entitled to come under Section 67 of the Immigration Act. So there are quite a few children who ought to be able to come and come quickly before the weather gets worse, the winter sets in, and the conditions are even more miserable than they are now. So what can you do? What can we all do? I think the important thing is to press the government very hard. They should go on taking children under Section 67. They're trying to hold off by saying local authorities are not willing to take any more because they haven't got any more foster places. We know that there are more foster places, so local authorities can do that. And particularly, there's Dublin 3, that's to say the family reunion agreement. And that is Europe-wide. And we know that that is a lifesaver as a way of getting children to join their families who are in Britain. It would apply equally if there was a child in France with a family in Sweden. And what we're worried about is that the government will close down Dublin 3 as part of the process of leaving the European Union. So the important thing is to make political pressure felt so that the government go on taking children under Section 67 and that the family reunion provisions stay open even if we leave the European Union. So the thing is to lobby your MP, not just, if you can get a meeting with your MP, even better, to lobby your MP, to lobby local councillors who have political influence and to persuade them that the local authorities should take refugees, particularly child refugees, under Section 67. Let your voice be heard in any organisations of which you're a member, faith groups, trade unions, wherever it is, let your voice be heard. And then I believe as many of you as possible will be invited to come to Parliament for a demonstration in support of these demands on the 24th of October. That's to say the year's anniversary of the closing of the jungle. The important thing is to get child refugees back on the political agenda. And I'll sign off with, well, I'll take questions. Just say one thing. I think it's important we have public opinion on our side. It was public opinion that enabled us to get as far as we've got. I believe the majority of people are still with us. Of course, some are against, but the majority are still with us. We've got to keep public opinion on our side because that is the best way of bringing pressure to bear on the government. That's over for me to you.
Oh, unmute myself, that helps. So I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Beth, who's in Brussels actually at the moment, and she's going to explain how we'd like you to get involved over these next few weeks. Right. Beth, you're live.
Great. Hi, everyone. First of all, what I'm going to do is we're going to take questions for Alf because we've got I'd say probably about 10 minutes for questions, and I know a lot of you will have them for Alf, and it's a nice opportunity for you to be able to speak directly to Alf here now. So I've not quite figured out how you do the raise the hand on the sidebar. So maybe for those who can type their question in the chat bar. So basically, if you go to the bottom of your screen, there's an icon that says chat. If you click on that on the right-hand side, it will allow you to type a question in. If you're visible, like me, on video, and you would like to ask a question directly, raise your hand like this, and you can then, I'll unmute you, and you can, or Mike will unmute you, and you can speak directly to Alf. So let's try this now. If you want to raise your hand or type a question in the sidebar for Alf. Great. I've got one here from Julie Alexander Cooper. Mike,
yeah, Julie.
you can unmute Julie, so she's not silent.
Yeah. Yeah. Julia, you're unmuted.
Excellent, excellent. I just wanted to ask, I contacted my local MP by letter, and he's very much not in favour of supporting the Dubs agreement. It's Jeremy Wright, and sent back a letter that was very, very much closing down any conversation at all. I just wanted to ask, obviously you suggested speaking to local councillors, so perhaps I'll go that route. But can you suggest any other methods I could use perhaps with him to persuade?
Well, Julie, first of all, thanks for your question, and thank you for doing what you're doing. You're doing absolutely the right thing. If more people were doing it, the pressure would increase. Look, first of all, it's partly to keep the amendment open, but partly for family reunion. If he hasn't answered on family reunion, then I think you should press him on that. We have an obligation to do that. Ask him about Dublin 3, ask him about family reunion, and get your friends to do the same thing.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Julie. So we've got a couple of questions in the sidebar coming up. One is from Kaz. In fact, Mike, do you want to unmute Kaz? I can see her here, so she can ask her question in person if she'd like.
Yep, Kaz, you're unmuted.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it was just, I was wondering, in what way could the government justify stopping the scheme due to leaving the EU? How would they link that, just so that, you know, forewarned is forearmed, sort of?
Okay, let's take the two elements. Let's take Section 67. That has nothing to do. With whether in the EU or not. That is simply a matter of saying that children who don't have family here should still be entitled to come here. Okay. Now, the critical one is Dublin 3, which is a Europe-wide agreement, and the government could simply say, we're going to stop that agreement, we're going to stop the family reunion obligation that we have as a country. And that is where we should bring pressure to bear. We've asked the government in the past where they stand, and they've not really said anything. We wanted a commitment they'll keep the scheme open. And that is the question that you could ask them. That is the method. And of course, in both houses of Parliament, we'll be watching very hard to see that they don't try and do it, and trying to get amendments that we'll try and get amendments down to oblige them to continue to keep the scheme going.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. And just to clarify for everybody who isn't Alf, Section 67 is the formal term for Alf's amendment, the Dubs amendment. But of course, Alf won't call it the Dubs amendment because that would be, that would be strange for him. So I've got another question here from Roberta Manatavani. Sorry if I've pronounced your name incorrectly. Roberta, I'm just having a look to see whether you're, I can see you. If you're unmuted now, if you want to ask your question in person. Oh, Roberta, are you there?
I know. I don't think Roberta has a microphone.
No problem. Okay, so I'll ask Roberta's question. She asks, how many children are still waiting in Calais under Dubs agreement, and how many under Dublin 3? So Alf, that's a question about how many children could come under your amendment, and how many are family reunion eligible.
We don't know the exact figures, but the best estimate, which I've got from Safe Passage, is that there are about 200 in Calais and Dunkirk at the moment, and we think about a third of those might be eligible for Dublin 3, and some more would be eligible under the amendment. So we're talking about 100, 200 upwards, and the numbers are increasing as more children drift towards the Channel coast. So the answer is we're talking about several hundred. Beth, you may have better figures than I have.
That's the best estimate at the moment. There is a Refugee Data Project survey that is going on that may be published soon, that will come up with with the newest figures. But we think around in the region of Calais, not just in Calais itself, but in the region of Calais, we think it's about 200 children in total. Around a third may be Dublin eligible. So that's family reunion union eligible. And of course, under Alf's amendment, it is, basically the criteria are quite broad still. It's, vulnerability led. So if they're vulnerable children and have been in Europe for the last year, they are eligible. So I've got another question here from Melanie. Melanie.
Yeah, I think. Oh, Melanie's unmuted, I think. If you want to talk. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Okay. My question is, as the Conservative government is being kept in power at the moment by the DUP, would it be a good idea to lobby the DUP so that they could be used as a lever?
Right. That's a very interesting question. Indeed, I have in fact raised in Parliament and with the DUP whether they would be supportive. I'm afraid so far they weren't, but there's no reason why you shouldn't ask them again and bring pressure to bear if you have the ability to do it. Incidentally, I've been invited by a voluntary organisation to go to Northern Ireland and take part in discussions on that very issue. Although whether I'll meet any of the DUP people, I don't know. But yes, the more pressure you can bring to bear on the DUP, the better. And if you're willing to do that, good luck to you. But don't be too hopeful that it'll be a pushover. But it's worth trying.
Great.
Okay.
So we've got another question from Katerina. Not sure whether Katerina is on the phone or online.
Yeah, I've just unmuted Katerina.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Hi there.
Hi. I'm in the fortunate position of having a very switched on MP, Thangam Debonair, but she's also the chair of the APPG on refugees. So I'm wondering which way would Alf suggest I proceeded if I arranged a meeting with her? Because I know one of my colleagues from our refugee support group was going to be on this meeting, and he's not here. He hasn't arrived, so we could go together.
Okay. Well, thank you for the question, and you're lucky to have Thangam as your MP. I know pretty well. I'm a member of the all-party group. In fact, we had a meeting on this subject at the Labour Party conference, a meeting that she organised. I would suggest that you contact her and say, it's always nice to say to MPs they're doing a good job, and ask whether there's any further help you can be locally for her efforts, point one. And point number two, you could still talk to local councillors because they also need to be alert to the pressure from people like you, and local councillors can be helpful in arranging for or helping the council or persuading the council to take more refugees, including child refugees. So you can do all those things, and of course let your voice be heard wherever else you can. But at least you've got an MP who's sympathetic, so good for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. We've got a couple more minutes for questions for Alf. So if there's anyone who's on video or who has a question, there we go. I can see a hand.
We've got a question from Liz. So
great.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. As far as I understand it, the children in the Dubs amendment, the government have said they're not going to take any more at the moment. I think, but the Dublin Free, I think they should still be taken, shouldn't they? And I think a Safe Passage still working with children out in Calais, and I'm just trying to understand what's the delay and why is it just not happening.
But let me try and answer, and it's a good question. Look, as far as Dublin 3 is concerned, there is no reason why the government should not be taking children for family reunion. As far as Section 67, what some people call the Dubs Amendment, I find that slightly odd, but there we are. The position is that the government have taken 200 altogether from France. They have said that they will take another 280, making it 480 in total, at which point the scheme will stop, using the excuse that I've mentioned up to now, mentioned before, that local authorities have no more foster places. Now, we know that's not the case. We've talked to local authorities and they have. So even that argument falls by the wayside. So to sum up, if the government had the will they could immediately speed up the process of family reunion under Dublin III, and they could immediately speed up the process of getting the children that they've said they'll get up to 480, and to which they're promised. And then over and above that, they should go on doing it.
So is it just the Home Office delaying things?
It's the government who are not willing to get on with it. I mean, I can't read into their minds. You know, I don't understand why they're being like this, because they, you know, even on the basis of the amendment, they said it could be up to 480, and the excuse is they can't take any more. Well, 480 is something they haven't nearly reached yet, and they should get on with it, because it's a desperate situation for children to be stuck somewhere with no obvious future, waiting for something to happen. And how can we do that to young people? It's awful. And I think we should make it clear to government supporters that's what we think.
Okay, thank you.
So we've got a question from Jackie. And then one from Neil in the chat bar. And I think unless there's any more last minutes, we'll just leave it at those two. I
can see Neil, but I can't see. Oh, is it a message to you?
No, she's there in waving her hand in the video.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, don't worry.
You're on. Yeah. You're live.
And I have two daughters from the DR Congo who I've fostered long term. I've had some really good support from the Children's Commissioner's Office. I'm just wondering if the Children's Commissioner's Office, I mean, I would imagine that they're involved in this process. I just wondered what their actions or what they were doing in terms of supporting this. And my next question was, would it be possible to marry people up? So people like myself, who've been through the process with other children, who have an understanding of what's required, who have more of a take on the asylum process itself because they've been through it with other kids. Could we be married up with families who have children so that we can support them in doing what they need to do to bring that child over?
Right. Well, let me start by trying to answer. Maybe Bethel will fill in any further points. As far as the Children Commissioner is concerned, I don't know. They've certainly been supportive, but I'm afraid I don't know in detail how much they're involved, and maybe Beth can help on that. On the question of marrying up, I think Safe Passage may be able to help, but of course at a local level, if you've got other people thinking as you do, you could arrange local support for all this and local marrying up, so that you can talk to people who haven't got the experience you have and help people through it. And at a local level, I think that would be a very effective way of doing it. I've seen it done in other areas, and I don't know what sort of local structure you have to as it were, make the connections. But if you can, then that would be ideal. And your experience. Your experience would be invaluable, because I'm sure other people who are fostering would welcome the chance to hear from you, to see what the good points are and what they have to be aware of. So you're worth a lot. You're worth a lot to this.
All right, thank you. But I was just thinking in terms of actually finding the families. We have Justice First on our doorstep, but they only work with people who haven't got legal representation. I would imagine the families themselves are settled, have got settled status, and they've got legal representation because they're going to need it. So it's in terms of actually finding the families that perhaps to speak with. How would you recommend that we go about that?
Well, I think let Beth have a go. Beth will help that there.
Very, very briefly, whereabouts do you live?
In Thornaby, near Stockton-on-Tees, in the northeast of England.
So we have a community mentor program, which basically connects people like you who want to volunteer, and we provide training for them.
I should probably say I'm a chartered psychologist at this point.
So probably you don't need much training, but we still do training in the community mentor scheme, and make sure obviously that everything's DBS checked, etc. But then you become a local sort of mentor point for children arriving under Dublin. So children who are arriving to join family members, but will still need some local support. to access services and to navigate the asylum process, which, as you know, is really difficult. So
Yeah.
if you send us a message, or we'll try and find you and send you a message afterwards with more information, if that would be of interest to you.
That would be.
I can see a couple more questions coming in. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it at Neil, who is going to be the last question to Alf. Neil, I can't. He's there, but I don't think you can unmute him unless you've.
Yes, I've been
Oh,
unmuted.
there we go.
Thank you. I wonder, what's the main reason the government resists the acceptance of the refugees? If it's financial, I wondered whether there couldn't be something similar to what was done for the kinder transport, where the kids were sponsored at 50 quid a time. If it didn't do anything else, it might shame the government into taking some action.
Well, thank you, Neil, for the question. I wish I knew the answer. I think it is mean and very narrow of the government not to see the interests of the children as mattering, and to see the reputation of our country as mattering. After all, when the kinder transport children arrived, and I was one of them, 10,000 of us arrived from Germany, Austria, and Czechoslovakia. And there was a generosity of spirit that underlay that, and there were some financial points, as you said. However, it clearly, to foster a child is a fairly costly thing, and the government has provided some support, but it's still limited. I don't think the answer is. I don't think the government's answer is it's money, although they might try and give voice to that. I think the government are trying to keep the numbers down and wish these two schemes would just go away. I think that's what they want. They're a bother to them. Their heart isn't in it, and they know that there's a lot of public pressure on them, and there'll be more as a result of what we're doing this evening to do it. So I think it is. I think it is a narrow-minded attitude, and I vary between feeling tearful and feeling angry. And thank you for making that point. Could I just say, as I'm being signed off in a minute, can I just say thank you all very much indeed. I think it's terrific. I know we could go on talking for hours, but I think it's terrific that you're all so committed to be doing this. I think it's great that Safe Passage have organised this, and really it is the support of people like you that will make a difference. So thank you for what you're doing. I'm delighted to be part of this team, and good luck to you in your efforts.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Alf. So Alf is going to sign off now, because we're going to give you your, we're going to set out what the plan is ahead of the 24th of October, which is, as Alf said, the anniversary of the Calais camp's demolition. So we've got a big public action planned for that date, and what we would like you to do is to be a part of the kind of leadership team that helps achieve that and deliver that across the country. So Alf, I can still see you, so you're welcome to continue with us for as long as possible. So what we'll do, I'll spend the next 5 minutes setting out what that looks like. We might have time for a couple of questions, and then I'm going to hand over to Mike, who's going to walk you through the first step, which is setting up a meeting. I'm also going to pass over quickly to Juliet Kilpin, who is one of she's been a stalwart of the refugee welcome movement. She is a key kind of leader of Safe Passage campaigns, and was in Calais from the beginning, really, and knows a lot about the situation out there. But first of all, we'll start off with talking about the 24th and what the plan is in the run-up to the 24th. As many of you have said, you've done a lot of emailing your MPs. Some of you have probably visited your MPs a couple of times, and probably had mixed results. What we really want to achieve by and on October the 24th is to get Calais, and particularly the situation for children in Calais, back at the top of the government's political agenda, just for that day, but to put pressure on the Home Office to sort the situation out with the French. It's not in the news at the moment, and it's not really on the government's radar. Brexit is dominating everything, but we think around that day and on that day, is a good opportunity to raise this up the agenda again and put some serious pressure on the government. It's a year on since so many children were transferred, and so we want to both celebrate that, because we want the government to come with us. We don't want to be polarising them into disavowing what they did at that time, but we also want to raise the situation again in Calais and remind people that the job isn't done and there's many children who've gone back there. So what we want you to do is to bring people together locally, so that it's not just your voice, your one voice emailing your MP, but it's a group of you, a number of you locally, who are coming together to form a plan to contact your MP and to come down to London, or to hold an event in your own constituency on the 24th. So the point is that we might be on our own. Our voices are just one voice. You know, we've all emailed our MPs numerous times about many issues, and alone that doesn't always make a difference. But actually, if we come together locally into a group and we act together, we have a lot greater chance of having an effect and making MPs, I think, sit up and listen to us. So the plan is, and we have some technology to help us do this, the plan is to ask people across the country and ask you guys to host house meetings. So a house meeting, it's a bit of an American term, but effectively what it is, it's a local get-together to talk about the situation and to fix a plan and to act together on the 24th. So what we have is we have basically a site where you can, and Mike will run you through it in a bit, but it's a site where you can go and create your meeting. You can hold it at your house, but if you don't fancy that, you can hold it in a local coffee shop or a community centre or your church hall or wherever you can meet with a group of people. And you fix a date, a venue, and then you invite people. And what we'll do is we'll invite supporters across the country who are in your local constituency. So basically, if you're hosting a meeting, you can throw it out to your friends and family. If you just want to keep it private, that's okay too. You just want to have it as people you know, that's okay. But if you're happy for it to be thrown out wider to Safe Passage supporters and to other organisation supporters like Help Refugees who are going to be involved in the campaign, then we'll throw it out wider, and people from your local area will get together and get that invite and hopefully come down to meet with you at that point. So then what happens in the meeting? So basically the idea is to, yes, get together and write lots of letters to your MP, and we'll give you some briefing on that, and ask them crucially to speak in the debate in Parliament on the date of the anniversary of the Calais demolition, which is on the 24th of October. We should have next week confirmed that there will be a debate on the 24th in Parliament, and so ministers will have to come to the floor of the House in Parliament and answer questions from their MPs. So we want as many MPs as possible from all parties, not just the usual suspects, feeling obligated to go to that debate and ask a question on behalf of you, their constituents, but also on behalf of the children in Calais. So the second thing we're going to do is we're going to send you a case study of a child in Calais that we, your partners, have worked with, and send you some details, not enough details so that you could go and find, or anybody could go and find the child, but enough details to give you an idea about what a child in Calais is going through right now. And we'd like you to include that case in your letter and to write particularly on behalf of that child to your MP. And hopefully in the debate, your MP will then stand up and speak on behalf of that child and their family who is here in the UK right now. So, and then also at that meeting, what we'd really like you to do is fix a plan about how you're going to get the letters to your MP. Are you going to go and arrange to go to the local MP's surgery to deliver the letters and to speak to them about the situation in Calais, and go as a group rather than just as one individual? Or can you come down to Parliament on the 24th? So on that day, in Parliament, we hope to have a debate, and then we will hope to get as many people as possible down to Parliament to demonstrate the level of support for fixing the situation in Calais. So we want a good turnout. So we want not just you guys, but we want you to bring as many friends and family and supporters who you've met in these meetings as possible to come down to Parliament. And what we'll try and do is we'll arrange for you to visit to speak to your MP. Now I'm gonna introduce, if Mike, you can unmute Juliet Kilpin at this stage, who is leading that action on Parliament on the 24th and can give you a bit more information about what that might look like on the day. I don't think all the details are nailed on, but they're getting there, aren't they, Juliet?
Absolutely, yeah. Hi everybody, really good to see so many of you on this call this evening. I'm a Baptist minister. I'm based in Southend-on-Sea in Essex, part of a network of over 2,000 Baptist churches, and we want to see more child refugees brought over here. I was at the jungle a year ago, just before it was demolished, and I was with children at the very moment when they received information that they were going to be that their wait was over and they were going to be brought over to their families, and it was just fantastic experience to be there. And a year ago, the Home Office proved that they could bring children over very rapidly. Just so many came over in such a short space of time, and the Home Office showed that they can do it. And so on this action on the 24th of October, really what we want to do is to say thank you to the Home Office for doing that previously, and to ask them to speed up the process again, because currently the children that are in Calais have nowhere they can go to register for asylum. They have nowhere where they can explore a legal route over here. But the Home Office can do it, and they can put pressure on the French to do it as well. And we want to encourage them to do that. So on the 24th, what we want to do is we want to meet outside Parliament at 12 noon, and we're going to have a short programme of things that are happening there. We're going to be hearing from some families whose children have come over, and to hear some real life stories and testimonies from them. We're going to be thinking about all the kind of different emotions and all the different, the impact it has on the children to be stranded away from their families for so long, and to consider that together. And we really, what we want to do is to show a strength of presence, that we want, that there are lots of us representing numerous different networks and alliances who want the government to put this back on their agenda. So we were going to gather together, hopefully a nice big crowd of us, hopefully including you and some of your friends as well. And then after that piece of action, what we'll do is we'll walk over to Parliament, and those of us that have brought letters, we will go in and we will meet our MPs, hopefully, in the lobby of Parliament, and actually be able to ask them to go into the debate, which will be scheduled hopefully a little bit later in the afternoon, to participate in that debate, having witnessed our enthusiasm, and also in their hands having letters and real case studies of children in their constituencies who they can bring into that debate. So that's what we're hoping will happen on the day. We'd love you to be a part of it. There's been a great team working together to pull that together. We'd love you to join that team. There's a meeting. The next one is next Tuesday, the 10th, in central London. We're looking for people who really want to get behind this campaign and think longer term as well, who can motivate their networks and their alliances to be involved. And if you'd like to join that, then please let Beth know. You can come to that meeting physically, or you can dial in, so you can be anywhere in the country as well. And you'll hear more about how the details are shaping up, not only for October the 24th, but also what's going to be happening after that as well. As Alf said, really this has dropped off the agenda of the government, and yet the number of children arriving in Calais is continuing to increase. 200 children left in Calais in conditions that we would simply not allow here in the UK. Where could you imagine 200 unaccompanied teenagers being left to roam free in a city or a town in the UK, sleeping in the woods, having no toilets, having no showers, getting scabies, getting tuberculosis, relying on handouts, and being at risk of smugglers to simply get to their family. It would not happen. And so that's what October the 24th is about. We would love it if you could be there. We'd love it if you could motivate some other people to come with you, so that there's a really good turnout. It's half term, so bring your families, bring a picnic, bring your youth groups, or other people that you know, and it'd be fantastic to see you there.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Juliet. I'm conscious of time. If people have questions, what I'm going to suggest is putting them in the chat bar, or emailing us directly. I think you're able to do that from this email. So yeah, if you want to email us after the call with specific questions, but just to say everything that we've set out this evening, we'll send you information by email about, a real step-by-step guide to how to do all of this, times and locations of the event on the 24th. Just also to say, we're hoping, fingers crossed, that there may be a debate in Holyrood as well in the Scottish Parliament. So for everybody up in Scotland, you'll be able to participate there as well. So what I suggest we do now is I'm going to hand over to Mike, who is going to take you through probably the most technical part of all of this, which is how to actually set up the house meeting online. So it's basically, you've got to click a link and then you've got to do a couple of things. So he'll take you through how to do that. And really, we really hope that as many of you as possible will then go ahead and do that. It's a bit of for many of you, it would be your first time doing something like that. And I'm sure you'll feel a bit nervous doing it. But just to say, it's a fantastic, it's a fantastic experience to meet people locally like you who feel strongly about this issue. And you'll probably find there's lots of like-minded people living right next door to you that you never realised. So yeah, I hope as many of you as possible can set up a house meeting in whatever venue you feel comfortable with in the next couple of weeks ahead of the 24th. So Mike, I hand over to you.
Okay, thanks Beth. So I am just about to send a link in the chat, but don't worry if you can't get on that link, and if you're on your phone on the app, probably don't click it, because then you'll leave this conversation. So basically what that link will take you to is to a page where there's a map of all the different events that were happening all over the country. At the moment, if you click on it, it's just got my event on there, because I only created this afternoon, and that shows there's an event in Hackney where I live, in a pub. And so when you get on there, you can set up your own event by clicking click to host, and it's much like setting up an event on Facebook, if you've ever done that. And it's really simple. I've given you there's simple steps there for what you need to do that I've written out, and also a lot of the blurb and the text and copy that is needed in the event I've already written out, and you just need to insert your MP's name basically and create a title for your event. I think the crucial part of creating this event is finding a suitable location. When I was creating my event, I didn't want to do it in my in my house, because my flat is very small and couldn't cater for more than a few people. So I decided to do it in my pub, a local pub, where I know I can book a table for however many people are going to turn up. And so that I put that as the location, so everyone knows when they're signing up where the event is going to take place. So once you've created your event, it will then populate on the Safe Passage map and your people will be able to come onto that page, search their postcode, and then find their nearest event, which could be yours or whoever else's. And then you can also share that event with friends via email or on your social media profiles, Facebook or Twitter, whatever you use. And also Safe Passage will be emailing our supporters to ask them to find their nearest event. So you might find new people you've never met will want to come along to your event. But if you're doing your event in your house and you don't want random strangers that you don't know coming, you can make your event private. Totally understand why you might want to do that. But if you make your event public, we'll obviously get more people coming along to these events. So I'm sorry if I'm talking through this and it's difficult to understand what I'm talking about, but I will be sending this all in an email following this conference call, and all will become clear. I'm very sure. So yeah, I think that covers it. Does that make sense to you, Beth?
Makes sense to me, but I've heard this before, so hopefully it's made a bit of sense to everybody else. I think the key thing is just to say I think it would be really worth having a go. All of you are on this call because you're all committed to this cause. You all said you wanted to campaign on Calais this autumn, and you've all, I reckon, probably done a fair bit of campaigning in the past, so this won't be new to you. But organising an event, yeah, it's a bit of a stab in the dark. Maybe 2 people turn up, maybe 20 people turn up. But I think it's a great opportunity to meet people locally in your area who feel the same way as you, and to get more powerful locally on this issue. I think we're almost there. There are a few questions coming in the chat bar, and we'll try and respond to them, as well as sending you more information at the end of this call. I'm just seeing another couple of familiar names, including Faraday, who is an amazing campaigner in Plymouth, who runs an organisation or a project called Open Hearts, Open Borders, and she has mobilised probably a few thousand people down in the southwest a number of times on Calais, as well as sent many containers across in aid. Faraday, if we unmute you now, I wonder whether you want to say a couple of just a few words about the perspective from Plymouth, and how you're going to be involved on the 24th.
Okay, have you unmuted me?
Yes, we can all.
Yes. Hello, how are you all? Nice to speak to you. What I'm hoping for is that I will be able to come up to London on the 24th. But I'm already started thinking, when I was hearing what you were saying about hosting these meetings, there is a lot of people that it stretches down across the southwest. So is it okay for it just not to be in my local constituency, that people can come from Totnes or they can come from Cornwall and be part of this meeting?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, because that's probably what's going to happen down this end. So I'm going to drum up as much support as I possibly can. But we also do have a container leaving. Like three on the 21st of October, we've got a container leaving. But just as I've been talking to you, I've actually already written down a list of, I think, 10 names of people who I know definitely will be involved. So I am thinking along the lines that it will be it will be people across the southwest rather than just in my local constituency. And I know that Luke Pollard is very much on side, and I've also had a conversation with Johnny Mercer on Saturday, who very pleasantly surprised me actually with what he said. So I think that those two will actually definitely, I think Luke Pollard will definitely be part of the backbench thing. But I will also try to drum up as much of the student population at Plymouth University as I possibly can as well with this. I might even be able to get them to host a meeting. You never know, I can send them some details. So that I think it all sounds fantastic, and I will do my very best to drum up as much support across the whole of the southwest, even down as far as I think probably Penzance, and maybe a little bit further into Cornwall if I can.
Brilliant. Thanks, Faraday. So that's what a very experienced campaigner down in the southwest is going to be doing. So we expect nothing less of all of you. But yeah, I think we're really excited about what in the next couple of weeks what we might be able to do. It's going to take a lot of effort to get Calais back on the political agenda, but it really is so critically important right now. We have quite a short window before it gets extremely cold in northern France, and these children are outside without any shelter, and have no access to safe and legal routes. So really the The objective is to get Calais back on the agenda for the 24th, make a lot of noise and try and persuade the government to use its leverage in France to work with France on a solution. So I think we will end the call there. You're probably all quite tired and hungry. Just to say thank you so much for joining, everybody. Really appreciate it. It's so nice to see so many people on, and Alf's gone, but we'll say a special thanks to Alf as well. And I'm sure he will be joining future calls like this. So we'll send you all across the details that we've been discussing this evening, and hope to see you at some of these events across the country and in Parliament on the 24th. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.